All right. So, are you ready to dive into this whole goodbye dollar dominance thing?
Yeah.
We took a deep dive into this YouTube video from the Geopolitical Economy Report.
Yeah.
And
Fascinating stuff.
yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. I mean, it's not just about economics, right? We're
Things
talking
are absolutely not.
power shifts, global stuff, and wait for it, grain. Grain's involved somehow, so
It's all connected.
it's all connected.
It really is. I mean, the U.S. dollar has had so much power for like almost a century.
Yep.
You know, after World War II,
Right.
they set up these systems that really favored Western powers, the U.S. especially.
Yeah, it's like they created this VIP club, and guess who's got, like, all the best perks?
Right.
I mean, veto power in all these key institutions. The dollar becomes the global reserve currency.
Exactly.
I mean, not a bad setup if you're the one running the show.
Yeah, it's this exorbitant privilege. That's what they call it.
Right.
And, you know, it translates into real world advantages, right? The U.S. can borrow money way cheaper than other countries.
Yeah.
Gives them a huge edge in the global market. And then they can run these massive deficits,
Yeah.
you know, importing goods and resources,
Yeah.
all while paying with basically printed money.
It's like an unlimited credit card, basically,
Right.
backed by, like, the hard work of people all over the world.
Exactly.
But you know what? Cracks are starting to show.
Yeah, they are. And one of the big players driving that is Brics.
Brics.
Brazil, Russia, India,
Right.
China, South Africa.
Right.
Now, before anyone freaks out,
Yeah.
BRICS is not some military alliance, okay? Some people are saying that, but
Right. It's not about tanks and troops.
no, it's about economics and finance.
Right.
They're creating alternatives to this Western-centric system.
Yeah.
It's been around for so long.
It's like they're picking up that torch from way back in the 70s, that
Yeah.
new international economic order call,
Exactly.
but they're doing it with a 21st century twist.
The 21st century twist, exactly.
Yeah.
And this shift away from the dollar, it's happening a lot faster than people think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. China now settles over half of its cross-border trade in yuan,
Wow.
dollars.
Think about that. China,
I know.
the world's second largest economy.
Right.
They're increasingly just doing business in their own currency.
Yeah, and it's not just China. China-Russia trade, over 90% is in their local currencies.
Wow.
And you see similar deals popping up all over the place between BRICS nations and beyond.
Yeah.
You know, even Africa and Southeast Asia are setting up their own systems to trade in their own currencies.
So this is a real thing.
Oh yeah, the de-dollarization train has left the station.
Wow.
And there's a reason this is happening now. I mean, aside from the inherent unfairness of the current system,
Right.
recent events have shown how the U.S. can just use the dollar as a weapon.
Right. We're talking about freezing hundreds of billions in assets from countries like Russia, Venezuela, Afghanistan.
Exactly.
I mean, even taking some of that money.
It's a big question. Who wants to play in a system where your money can just be taken away?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That lack of trust is huge. And Russia's been very vocal about this.
Yeah.
There's this bill proposal at the 2024 Kazan summit.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Basically, they said, look, let's get rid of these old clunky systems and modernize global finance.
That's pretty radical.
It is. Their argument is that relying so much on a single currency and centralized infrastructure is really hurting emerging economies.
Right. It's like siphoning wealth from the global south to the global north,
Exactly.
enriching the elites and hindering development where it's most needed.
Yeah. And so Russia's proposal is to create this multi-currency future.
Okay.
So instead of SWIFT, you know, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication,
Right.
they want to create new systems and networks so banks can transact directly in their local currencies.
So SWIFT is basically how banks talk to each other, right? To authorize payments across borders.
Exactly. It's like the messaging system,
Yeah.
but it can be controlled and manipulated, as
Yeah.
we've seen with the sanctions.
So Russia's idea is cut out the middleman, cut out the dollar.
Yeah.
Make it more efficient, more transparent.
More transparent, less susceptible to political pressure.
I like it. And it gets even more interesting. They're proposing to settle trade imbalances with actual commodities.
Oh, well, right.
Grain oil, even gold.
Think about it, trading oil for rice.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds ancient, but with technology, it could be incredibly efficient.
Yeah, cut out all those extra costs and complications.
Exactly. And then there's DLT, distributed ledger technology,
Okay.
blockchain stuff,
Right.
creating this decentralized, transparent network.
So sanctions become basically impossible.
Exactly. We're not just talking about shifting currencies. Now we're talking about restructuring the whole system.
This is big.
It is. And they're not stopping there. They're talking about this BRICS clear platform, a whole new system for securities,
Wow.
accounting, and settlement. Imagine investment hubs on every continent, opportunities in developing nations, not just Wall Street.
So it's about giving developing countries control over their own financial destinies.
Exactly, giving them the tools to invest in their people and infrastructure.
That's a powerful idea, and it's gaining traction.
It is. They're even talking about new ways to issue debt, moving away from those Eurodollar bonds to local currency options.
Again, it's about empowering nations to choose their own path, breaking free from those constraints that were designed to benefit just a few.
Right.
This is all very ambitious, but is a single Brics currency really on the table?
A single Brics currency is a long-term goal, but they're focused on practical steps right now.
Okay.
One idea is expanding the role of the IMF's special drawing rights, or SDRs.
SDR?
It's basically a basket of currencies like a global reserve asset.
So instead of just relying on the dollar, you have this more diverse basket
Right.
reflecting this multipolar world that we're moving towards.
Exactly. And it addresses this thing called the Triffin dilemma,
Triffin dilemma.
named after this economist, Robert Triffin. It basically describes how a national currency like the dollar struggles to be the global reserve currency.
So the U.S. has to supply enough dollars to meet global demand.
Right.
Which leads to these huge trade deficits.
Exactly.
And could ultimately undermine the dollar's value.
Exactly. BRICS understands this dilemma, and they're looking for ways to move to a system that's not so reliant on one single national currency.
So it's not just about tearing down the old system.
Right.
They're trying to build something new,
Something better.
something better. It's a fascinating time to watch all this unfold. But let's take a step back for a second and look at how this de-dollarization is playing out in the real world. Because it's not just about grand pronouncements and future scenarios.
You're right. It's happening right now in ways that are going to impact all of us.
So it's not just Brics making headlines.
Right.
It's a broader shift in thinking and behavior.
Exactly. And we're going to dive into some of those examples next, because understanding the nuances of this trend is key to navigating the changes ahead.
Okay, sounds good.
So, like India and the United Arab Emirates,
Okay.
they just struck this deal to settle some of their trade in rupees,
Really?
not dollars.
Wow.
It's a pretty big step for two major economies.
Yeah.
And it shows that this trend is going way beyond just the BRICS core.
Yeah.
You know-
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Once a few big players start moving away from the dollar,
Right.
others are going to see the potential and follow suit.
Exactly. And remember those sanctions on Russia?
Oh, yeah.
They kind of backfired.
How so?
Well, they actually sped up the move away from the dollar.
I see.
Because now countries are realizing they don't want to be stuck in a system where their assets can just be frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
But the basket is the US dollar.
Right.
And a lot of countries are starting to diversify.
Yeah, central banks all over the world are reducing their reliance on US dollar reserves. They're holding more euros, even gold.
So it's about spreading the risk,
Yeah.
reducing exposure to US policy.
Exactly. It's not just about finding other currencies to trade in.
Right.
It's a fundamental shift in how countries manage their finances.
This is a big deal.
It is. And it's happening on multiple levels.
Yeah.
We're even seeing individual companies, not just governments, start to use different currencies for their international transactions.
Really?
Yeah, like some energy companies are exploring using gold-backed currencies for oil trading.
Wait, gold-backed currencies? That sounds like something out of a history book.
Right.
How does that even work today?
It's an interesting idea. The idea is to back a currency with a physical asset, like gold,
Okay.
to make it more stable and less volatile.
I see.
It's a way to create a system that's not so dependent on central banks and politics.
And with technology, it's becoming more and more feasible
Right.
to manage these kinds of transactions. So it's like a blend of old and new,
Yeah.
taking a concept that's been around forever and updating it for the digital age.
It makes sense in a world where trust in those traditional systems is eroding.
For sure. People are looking for alternatives, something that feels safer, more secure.
Exactly. And gold, with its history and its value, has a certain appeal.
Right, but it's not the only option.
Of course not.
We talked about those SDRs.
Right, the IMF's special drawing rights.
Yeah, those are like a basket of currencies, right? A global reserve asset? Could that be part of the solution?
It's definitely a possibility SDRs could play a bigger role in the global financial system,
Okay.
providing a more diverse and stable alternative to just relying on the dollar.
It's like a safety net,
Yeah,
a backup plan if the dollar falters. But the value of SDRs is still based on those 5 currencies, right?
Yeah, US dollar, the euro, the yuan, the yen, and the pound.
Which is still pretty heavily weighted towards the West,
You're right.
which kind of defeats the purpose of moving away from dollar dominance.
Exactly. So if SDRs are going to be a real alternative, that basket needs to change. It needs to be more representative of the global economy.
So more currencies from emerging markets.
Exactly.
It's a work in progress.
It is.
But at least people are talking about it.
Right.
They're recognizing the need for change, and they're exploring different options. But let's bring this back to the listener for a second. What does this whole de-dollarization thing mean for the average person?
That's the big question, right? It's easy to get lost in the big picture. But it's really about how these changes affect our daily lives.
So how do we connect those dots? What should people be paying attention to? What kind of decisions should they be making to navigate this changing world?
Well, first, I think it's important to understand that if the dollar declines, it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be a gradual process with ups and downs along the way.
So the dollar's not going to just disappear tomorrow?
No, not at all. It'll likely still be a major currency for a while.
Okay.
But its dominance is being challenged.
Right.
And it's smart to be prepared for a world where it doesn't play such a central role.
Okay, so what does being prepared even look like? Should people be getting rid of their dollars and buying gold bars?
I wouldn't recommend anything drastic like that.
Okay.
But diversifying your assets is a good idea.
So like we were saying before, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Think about holding some assets in other currencies. Maybe look into foreign currency accounts or invest in international stocks and bonds.
Like what about gold?
Gold can be a good way to protect yourself against inflation and those currency swings.
Right.
It's a physical asset with real value.
Yeah.
It's been a store of wealth for a long time.
Okay.
So maybe hold a small percentage of your portfolio in gold.
Got it.
But remember, it's not a way to get rich quick.
Yeah.
It's about long-term stability and diversification.
Okay, so diversify, don't panic. What else?
Stay informed.
Okay.
Keep up with the news. Read about global economic trends.
So don't bury your head in the sand.
Exactly. Stay curious. Keep learning.
Right. The more you understand what's going on,
Yeah,
the better decisions you can make about your finances, your career, your life in general.
exactly.
That makes sense. But let's be real here. A lot of people are just struggling to get by. And they're not thinking about global currency shifts. They're worried about paying bills and putting food on the table. How does this all relate to them?
That's a good point. And that's where it gets interesting. Because while de-dollarization might seem like this abstract concept, it's really about power.
Okay.
It's about who controls the financial system and who benefits from it.
So it's about real people's lives.
Exactly. And for too long, that power has been concentrated in the hands of just a few.
Right.
The current system has created a lot of inequality.
Yeah, it's like a rigged game where the same people always win.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But de-dollarization has the potential to change that game. By creating a system that's more decentralized and equitable,
Okay.
we can empower people and communities that have been left behind.
So how do we make that happen? How do we make sure that de-dollarization doesn't just benefit some new group of elites, but actually makes the world more just and equitable?
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And it starts by understanding that this isn't just about moving money around.
Okay.
It's about shifting power.
Giving people a voice.
Right.
Giving them a stake in the system. And that takes more than just economic reforms. It requires social and political change, too.
So it's not just about changing the rules of the game.
Right.
It's about changing who gets to play.
Exactly. And that's what's exciting. Because when you start to shift power to the people, you get this burst of creativity and innovation.
So it's not just about fixing a broken system.
Right.
It's about building something completely new.
Something better.
Something better. Okay,
Okay.
I'm with you. But let's get practical for a minute again. We talked about diversifying investments. What are some specific things people can do to prepare for a world where the dollar might not be king?
One thing to consider is investing in tangible assets.
Okay, like what?
Things like real estate, precious metals, maybe even art and collectibles.
Ah, so things that have inherent value, not just numbers on a screen.
Exactly. It's about having something real that you can hold in your hand if things get shaky in the digital world.
Makes sense. So it's a way to protect against inflation and economic uncertainty.
Exactly. You might also think about investing in yourself. What do you mean?
Your skills, your knowledge.
Okay.
Because in a world that's less reliant on the dollar, there's going to be more demand for people who understand global markets.
Right.
Who can navigate different currencies.
Makes sense.
Who have expertise in things like international trade and finance.
So those are skills that will be valuable no matter what happens.
Exactly. So invest in yourself. Learn new languages. Study different cultures.
Okay.
Develop skills that will be in demand in a multipolar world.
It's about becoming a citizen of the world, not
Exactly.
just a citizen of one country.
That's a powerful idea.
It is. The world is changing, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
The old order is crumbling and something new is emerging.
It's right. So the question is, do we want to just stand by and watch it happen, or do we want to be a part of shaping it?
I like that. It's our choice.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think we have the power to create a better world, a world that's more fair, more sustainable, more prosperous for everyone.
I like that. But it's going to take courage, creativity, and a
Yeah.
willingness to embrace change.
It
Okay, I'm feeling hopeful, but I'm also realizing that this is just the beginning.
is.
There's so much more to learn, so much more to explore. Where do we go from here?
That's the beauty of it. The journey is just starting. And it's up to each of us to figure out our own path and how we want to contribute to this global shift.
So it's not about following some set path.
Yeah.
It's about making our own trail.
Exactly. And there's no right or wrong answer. What matters is that we're engaged, we're asking questions, we're learning and growing along the way.
So keep diving deep, keep exploring, keep connecting the dots.
And never underestimate the power of one person to make a difference.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into de-dollarization.
We've covered a lot, but I hope it's gotten you thinking differently about the world and your place in it.
We've explored the economics, the geopolitics, the personal impacts, and we've even talked about some strategies for navigating this changing landscape.
We have. But there's one more really important aspect of de-dollarization that we need to talk about. It's often overlooked, but it could be the most transformative of all. And we're going to explore that in part 3 of our deep dive.
So stay tuned, the conversation's just getting started. All right, so we've talked about the economics, the geopolitics, even how this whole de-dollarization thing could affect us personally.
Right.
But there's one piece of the puzzle we haven't really talked about yet.
Yeah, and it might be the most important one.
Okay, I'm all ear.
I think it's the psychological part of it all.
The psychology of de-dollarization.
Exactly. It's not just about changing currencies or power structures. It's about changing how we think.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? Changing how we think?
Well, for decades, the U.S. dollar has been more than just money, right?
Yeah.
It's been this symbol of power, stability, even aspiration.
Right.
It represents a whole worldview, a set of beliefs about how the global economy should work.
It's like it's ingrained in us.
Yeah.
Almost like a security blanket.
Exactly. And when that blanket starts to fray,
Yeah.
people get anxious, uncertain. There's even a sense of loss.
So de-dollarization, it's not just an external process.
Yeah.
It's internal too.
Yeah, we have to look at our own beliefs about money and power.
Right, and that can be uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. It can be really disorienting. We're being asked to let go of something familiar, something we've been told is essential.
It's like stepping outside our comfort zone
Exactly.
into uncharted territory.
But that's where the growth happens.
All right.
That's where real transformation comes from.
So it's not just about ditching the dollar.
Right.
It's about ditching those old ways of thinking that got us here in the first place.
Exactly. It's about moving beyond this idea of scarcity and competition and embracing abundance and cooperation.
Okay, that sounds great, but how do we actually do that? How do we change our mindset?
It starts with awareness,
Right.
recognizing that the old story about money and power, it's not working anymore,
Okay.
and that we can create a new story.
Do we become conscious creators?
Yeah.
Not just passive consumers.
Exactly. And that's a huge shift. Once we realize we have a choice, that we're not stuck in this system, all these possibilities open up.
So what does this new story look like? What guides us towards a better future?
I think it starts with recognizing that we're all connected.
Okay.
We're not just individuals fighting over limited resources.
Right.
We're part of a bigger web, a global community where our actions have consequences.
So we need a more holistic view of the world.
Exactly. And that includes valuing things that aren't so easily measured by money.
Like what?
Things like community creativity, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
our connection to nature.
Those are values that have been pushed aside in our current system.
Right. But they're essential for
Yeah.
our well-being and for the health of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And as we move away from the dollar, we have a chance to put those values front and center again.
So it's not just about changing currencies.
Right.
It's about changing our priorities, our definition of success, how we live in the world.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a fundamental shift in consciousness,
Yeah.
recognizing that we're all in this together.
Right.
And that our well-being depends on us taking care of each other and the planet.
I'm feeling a sense of excitement and responsibility. Excitement for what's possible, but also responsibility for playing our part.
And that's really the key takeaway. De-dollarization isn't just something happening to us.
Yeah.
It's something we're all part of.
So our choices matter.
They do. Our actions have consequences.
Right. We're not just watching this happen.
No.
We're helping to shape it.
Exactly. And that's both empowering and a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But I believe if we approach this with awareness, with compassion, with a willingness to learn, we can create something truly amazing.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into de-dollarization.
We've covered a lot of ground from the economics and geopolitics to the very personal and psychological dimension.
But this is really just the beginning. The future is happening right now, and we all have a role to play.
So keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep engaging with the world around you.
Because the world is changing, and we have the power to make it something truly extraordinary. But it takes courage to embrace the unknown, and it takes working together to build that better future for everyone. So until next time, keep diving deep,